Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PowerDMS by NEOGOV webinar, where we are announcing our professional standards suite. I'm going to hit a couple of housekeeping notes here first. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to go over to the panel. We got a little screenshot of it here for you, the GoToWebinar control panel. You can type your questions in there, and I'll either answer them right away in the chat for you, or we'll save them to the end for our Q&A portion. And the entire presentation recording and slides will be emailed to you tomorrow, so you'll have those later. And if you think of a question after the webinar is over, please do reach out. You can contact us at contact@powerdms.com. We'll be happy to answer those questions for you. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to introduce our panelists today. So we have former Deputy Chief Jessica Tyler, who is our General Manager of our Professional Standards Suite. We also have former Lieutenant Andy Henriksen, who's our Director of Law Enforcement Strategy. And we have John Adler, who's one of our great product managers who's been working on this Professional Standards Suite for us for a while here. So we're really excited to talk about this product. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, and I'll be back for Q&A at the end.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Alicia. And we're going to start off with John giving us just a quick overview of what you guys can expect for today with our webinar.
Yeah, so the Professional Standards Suite has been on the market for about 1 month now. Today, we're going to talk about what is the Professional Standards Suite here at NEOGOV PowerDMS, how our software is different, why we built this, and then go through a little Q&A to answer any outstanding questions that you all may have. Andy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
As we start talking about PowerAction, we're going to really get into the whys we built this. Spending almost 3 decades here with the Las Vegas Police Department, heavily involved when I was working professional standards of looking at all of our reports, those interactions that we had from vehicle pursuits to use of force to occupational injuries and anything we documented, and tried to find a way that we could simplify the process and have something to adapt to whatever your standard operating procedures are, whatever your policy says, and simplify for the front end user, the officer out in the field, where they can increase the efficiency, get more time, basically give you some manpower hours back by using the report, and not only streamlining the process and creating it on the entry level, but then also the workflow. So we'll have some talks on how that process was set up and the advantages of that. And I'll hand it to you, Jessica, for IA.
Awesome. Yeah, and really, you know, when we set out to build all of these products, we had started with kind of the end in mind of our customers telling us that they just really didn't have other solutions out there that really helped, again, streamline that reporting, as well as have like a good case management and software system that could help reduce that investigator workload. So as far as the internal affairs piece goes, you know, we wanted to make sure that we make the work that our IA investigators are doing, make that easier on them, streamline it, make sure that they have a one-stop shop to be able to do their complaint investigation, from complaint intake or that use of force that might be found to be outside of policy that requires an internal affairs investigation, and make sure that we are doing our investigations also consistently. And so making sure that we have software that supports those steps that the investigators take, streamlining that and making it easier for them, helping them reduce their workload, and again, just streamlining their process. And then we'll go back to Jonathan to talk about kind of why we built the PowerVitals.
Yeah, when looking at early intervention software in the current market, we noticed that most of the products, if not all of them, were punitive, strictly looking at how can we discipline these officers, how can we almost create a community of fear around their actions that they take in the field. And as you know, as we're serving professional standard software and the public safety, we want officers to feel supported, and that's the approach that we came here is how can we best support officers to perform to their highest level in the field so that their agency is supporting them. I'm going to turn it back to Jessica.
Awesome. So that's kind of the why of how we got started doing this. So what is PSS, right? So PSS is our professional standards suite. It involves 3 separate products, but products that can absolutely be utilized together, and we believe that they are much stronger when they're utilized together. So just a quick overview of what PSS is. It's those 3 products of PowerAction, again, making sure that action reports like use of force, pursuits, all of those administrative functions that our officers or deputies are taking in their workforce nowadays that require that additional review from administration, making sure that we have a way to do that in a streamlined manner with customizable forms and workflows, because we know that each agency has policies and procedures or collective bargaining agreements, state statutes that guide how these things have to be completed and reviewed. And so making sure that we have a platform that supports our customers' needs for that. So again, the highlight there is making sure that we have customizable forms, workflows that can be adapted to streamline the work that you guys do, take some of the workload off of our employees because we're constantly asking them to do more with less. And then the second product is PowerIA. Again, we talked about, simplifying that case management, having those automated workflows. Of course, security and confidentiality is extremely important in IA. So making sure we have a separate kind of ecosystem, if you will, within the Power platform for our IA investigators to be able to access their case, allow the chain of command that's going to review those cases to review them, but making sure that it's secure and cohesive and works seamlessly with our other products. For example, being able to bring in policy from PowerPolicy, ingest those action reports that might be the impetus for actually opening an IA case. And then third, we have PowerVitals, which again is our early warning or early intervention system that's going to capture all of the requirements that you may have, whether it's from a state mandate or again, maybe it's your accreditation program that requires you to have an early warning or early intervention system. So we want to make sure that we still fill those needs, but also making it much more robust with giving supervisors the tools and access to the information that they can actually give support to their officers earlier and prior to what a traditional early warning system would maybe trigger that alert. And so again, we want to make sure that we feel that our officers and our deputies feel like we've got them covered and supporting our supervisors and giving them the mechanism to be able to do that. So a big picture, that's what PSS is altogether. And we're going to have Andy talk a little bit more about what PowerAction does for us from the reporting standpoint.
A little bit later on, we are going to get into the live product, but just wanted to kind of give you a taste of really what the Streamlined means. It's basically taking it towards something that's not inflexible, being able to customize it and make it fit to you. So how is that done? Well, if you can go from a use of force to even just the use of an ECD. If you want to get granular on your reports, understanding of the information you put in, what you can report on down the road if you're looking at, what happened in the last 90 days, year over year for those comparisons. But it is built off of the information you put in, like I said, so code tables, those are flexible as well. You can go in and modify code tables. You can relabel fields. You even have the ability to customize additional fields if you want a simple free text field or a yes, no answer to make sure you have something locked in, and the ability to even add another code table field that's customizable to whatever report you've created. So wanted to really just give a lot of options, because the one thing that was frustrating was if somebody was out in the field and like, well, I have 3 choices and this is the one that doesn't really fit, but it's the best answer. No, whoever your agency admin is can go in and make those modifications and make sure that that answer is available for them or whatever they need to select. So you have the ability to really capture what you need to capture to put through on the end of the reporting.
Absolutely, thank you. And with IA, really it is about, again, having that secure case management and having a place within a system that we already use. So many of our customers, again, wanted less applications that they needed to log into. And so to be able to have a platform that allows us to do that secure case management within the Power products is huge, and be able to simplify that case management, but still be adaptable to be able to do things like, can I assign a case out to a patrol sergeant for those lower level case investigations, and wanting to make sure that we do that while ensuring that case security, and also in connecting our investigations to our policies. We know that internal affairs, any investigation is going to be started from that policy violation or that alleged policy violation. And so it's a perfect world, or a perfect match, if you will, to have our Power Policy ingested into our PowerIA, so that investigators can look in one place to be able to map, if you will, those allegations and the starting of those IA investigations directly to the policies in a place where they already live. And so having the case management be simplified, giving them vision into what cases they have, having access to those current policies, and of course, ensuring security within the Power products is paramount for us. John?
Yeah, so when it came to the early intervention software that we were creating here, we took the problem statement that was in the field of strictly being punitive, and we flipped it on its head. We said, why don't we make this the most wellness forward focused early intervention system that we can, and change the paradigm of what early intervention really means in public safety. That means recognizing burnout early. And how do we do that? Well, we have two concepts here that are completely new concepts to the field of early intervention. The first one, and I think the biggest one here, is the pulse score. The pulse score is essentially a cumulative score of the stress and the trauma that an officer has seen or experienced throughout their month, year, time in agency. And then we also have multi-indicator monitors, which essentially says, instead of just looking at one single indicator like use of force, let's look at how show of force, use of force, K9 deployment, some of these work it together, and let's create alerts off of that. Now, we also want to quantify stress exposure. Again, talking about the pulse score, we want to know what the officer has experienced. If we can start to paint a picture of what this officer has been experiencing, then we can have better conversations around, hey, how are you doing? Let's care about you as a human being. Let's see what you've gone through. Are you going through anything that needs more attention? This is a supervisor first approach, where that the supervisor then can start the conversation instead of forcing the officer to then make that approach. And then lastly, we have the ability to access robust data. We have data sources that connect to your CAD. We have a data source that looks at CAD notes and sees with a little bit of AI if there's any traumatic exposure to those calls. We have it connected with our action reports. We have data sources connected with our internal affairs. And then we can also bring in outsource data. So if you can export data from any of your other platforms, we can bring it in. Because we really, at the end of the day, want to paint the best picture of what the officer is going through. So the more data, the better we can do that here in this early intervention system. And I'll hand it back over to Andy.
Well, here you see all three products again on the professional standard solutions. And what we wanted to show was how each one can stand alone by itself, and or each one interacts with another. From the PowerAction, we will demonstrate where, as a supervisor, understanding that everything is roles and permissions based as we get into the product. So depending on what role that person has and what permissions and where they can access this when we log in. But investigation, if there is a bad use of force or a bad foot pursuit or something that needs to be investigated, cases can automatically be pulled over and created. It'll populate everything, all about efficiency. Once that case is either the disposition and adjudication's there, if it's exonerated or sustained, whatever it might be, it can be an indicator that feeds into vitals. Action reports can be threshold based and feed into vitals. So everything's intertwined, where there's that one login, one access area. And like I said, it just depends. If you're a front end user out in the field, you might only see some of the action reports. If you're a sergeant, you might see some additional features based off permissions, and then a lieutenant or higher might have the ability to even provide the dispositions on reports. So we'll probably jump in to the actual product here as well. Oh, looks like
Yeah.
Jessica, logged in to PowerDMS, and what she's showing right now is there's actually the app switcher up on the top. So whatever products you have, you can jump between any of those products. So it's one login, simplifies the process. We don't have multiple usernames, passwords getting in, and she clicks on the professional standards, takes us to the dashboard. So on the dashboard here, she's got 2 different areas to click on. We're going to address PowerAction, and it's going to pop up a couple different buckets. I can see immediately what needs attention, what's in progress, and what's submitted. That needs attention bucket is just that. In there, I'm going to be able to see what reports, and I have a status. And there's a couple different areas of status. One might be needs viewing. That means somebody sent me a report. I'm not an approver. They just wanted me to get eyes on it. It could be somebody in fleet if there was a vehicle collision report. It could be somebody in your armor or your supply if maybe somebody had an expendable, they used their ECD and they need a new cartridge. Or it might just be one of your defensive tactics lead instructors to get eyes on what was occurring out in the field with some empty hand tactics. Needs approval is going to be one that means I am in the workflow as an approver. I need to go in there, I need to review the report, and depending on what stage it's at in the workflow, I can either approve it, send it to the next supervisor, or I might be at that level where I go in, I approve it, and I close it, and I can put a disposition on that report. The third one that's on there for status is needs edits. That's a report that at some part I sent it up, my supervisor looked at it, kicked it back, added some notes, and said, hey, can you maybe add or expand in your narrative, or can you add another witness officer, whatever they saw that needed to be done. So I know that there's some edits on that report. The in progress, a lot of those are going to be draft reports, those that needs completion, something that's been started, and something that I can go in and click on a report. And if it hasn't been submitted yet in a draft stage, I can delete it if for some reason I did not necessarily need that report. And then the last bucket there was submitted, and those are just reports that are in the process. So it looks like Jessica clicked on a use of force report. Looking at this, if we click on event on there, it'll take me right into it. I just want to say, look at the top navigation bar. You have event, employee, subjects, others involved, interaction, and review. For the most part, almost all the reports, if there's an event, employee, subjects, and others involved, they're all the same. That interaction is key to what that particular report is. So for this one, the interaction piece is going to be geared towards everything on the use of force side. If it was a vehicle pursuit, it would be geared towards the vehicle pursuit. So it's very similar as you can navigate through, and you can jump from one section to the next. It all depends on what you want to do. She's been able to click on it. So if we go back to the event, I can see those green check marks. She actually pre-populated this report and filled it out a little bit earlier, so I know those fields are all complete. That lets me know that that section is done. I can move on. But I just wanted to highlight here the RMS event number and CAD number. If it's connected and there's the integration through the connection into your CAD or RMS, it can start to populate as we can pull over and fill out this report. Once again, streamlined efficiency. The data was available somewhere. Why don't we find a way if we can get it to start filling out that report just to save that officer or that deputy time if possible. And then there's additional information and I can continue on to the next part. For the employee, it's whoever's logged into the system is going to populate. However, you do have the ability to fill out the report on behalf of another employee. There are some agencies that require a supervisor to enter all vehicle pursuits. If that's the case, they can put yes, their information, and fill out who they're filling it out for, and it's all connected to their profile. So if we were to change the name, it would populate and pull in the information for that employee. The same thing as if maybe an employee went to the hospital to get some stitches because they were injured and I wanted to start the report to get it going, you have the ability to fill it out on behalf of somebody else. The subject field, that's simple, filling it out for whatever the subject interaction was, a couple options from person to animal, or maybe it's not even applicable. If there's nothing that's on there, you have the ability to select that, and we can add additional subjects as needed. When we go to the bottom, and you can start to populate additional people if there are involved on there as well. The next tab over on there, when we have others involved, this will cover witnesses. It might cover witness officers. And so if we have a partner on scene, you have the ability, if we click witness officer, we can enter the information for that officer. It'll populate. We can go through and continue and add as many as we need to as well. And then that last piece, interaction, that she has on here, basically is you'll start to see, we go down to, let's go down to underneath Joey Garcia there, the de-escalation techniques. Here, these are multi-select. So when we click on it, we can click on any one. These are just an example of the multiple reports that have code tables that are drop downs that are already available. And the agency admin can enable these or disable them, meaning that they'll either be available to select or else it removes them, and you can add additional ones. So that happens, we can do it here, you can do it on resistance type, response type. I know some agencies on response type, don't like the term deadly force. They prefer lethal force. Some might not like communication. It's verbal communication. It's a lot of flexibility that you can change depending on how your policy is already written to make it easy for the officers. Looking at the record actions in sequence, very important. The courts is obviously, as they go and they look at, is the use of force objectively reasonable? What occurred? What did the subject do? What did the officer do in response? Have the ability to go in and just record those. The subject did this, the officer did this, the subject did this, the officer did this. It can tell the story and it's visible. She's clicking on the body diagram right now. On the face, you can go granular on what parts. If she unchecks that, it turns blue. So basically, we really wanted to note if there was action that either caused visible injury, or just as important to note if there's a complaint of injury, although not visible, though that'll be noted in the narrative portion on there. So going through, we can see the sequences, can record a couple different ones, as many as you want. Once we get to the end on the review, you do have the ability to drag and drop if it's out of sequence. Say an officer fills this out, they go and they view the body cam, they look at, hey, this was out of sequence, so they can drag and drop something on there to change the order of the process on there. So that's the last part. And before we get to review, if everything was complete, I know we still have some boxes on the interaction. I can come through here, review my report. It'll show me, and hopefully we left one open. I think we did down below. Anything that has an asterisk right here, field is required. So this is telling me I can't submit the report unless I edit it and I go back and I add these fields. Really helps the first supervisor when he gets it to know that all those fields were completed if that was something you wanted for your agency. We'll kind of jump out of here in a second, but I want to scroll to the bottom and show a customizable field. We can go all the way to the bottom. Here's where the workflow is. I can override the workflow. We all know that sometimes a supervisor might take the night off, and if there's another supervisor that responds to the scene, I can override the workflow and add an additional supervisor. So my supervisor might still get it, but then also the supervisor that showed up and maybe did the initial investigation, talked to the subject, viewed the videos, just to get that into the process. All of our reports not only have a submit, but a submit and copy feature, meaning that it can take all the data that's in here and copy it into a brand new report. And what that will do is that'll allow you to give you the event, the employee, the subjects, and others involved already completed on your next report. It'll even copy over the narrative. So if they spent, a good 15 to 20 minutes and have a 3-4 page or paragraph narrative, it can copy over. And it's kind of important to make sure that obviously these reports, there's no contradiction, or we limit that. So the narrative's the same and they can expand or utilize any of that should they see fit. Let's see.
I was just going to show the submit and copy here for you.
Copy. All right.
Yeah.
So submit and copy. Now what it's doing is it's taking all that data. It's going to take a second to start to extract and look at everything that was in this particular report. And then a screen will have a pop-up that'll come up and tell us, what do you want to select? Do you want to select the event? Do you want to select the employee? Do you want to select the others involved? Do you want to select the interaction stage or section on there? And select all. There we go. We can go ahead and select all if you want, and then we'll hit submit or copy. It's going to let us know that that report was submitted. And then basically I'm creating a new report for that information. So if we select vehicle pursuit or any other report that you want, it's actually going to start to populate that report. So if I look at it, there's all the data that was already done. And now we're working on a vehicle pursuit. So if we click on that page is done, we can click on employee, that's done. We can click on subjects, that stuff, that's done. Others, it's just when we get to the interaction. So we're already on the 5th page of the report, and it was just trying to increase that efficiency. So done with that. If you have access with this user, can you go to admin and then PowerAction admin, or I'm sorry, you're gonna go to start a report to show all the reports, either one. Here we have what we was gonna call, or called our 15 standard reports, starting at use of force at the top left, all the way down to line of duty death. There was 15 reports listed there. What I've been finding, going on scene with all of our current users, is that they're using these as templates and really creating their own reports. So anything past line of duty death, there's all these custom reports. So we can click on report type there. It'll pull up all the custom ones, or we can create custom report. Go ahead. And now here's where we can use the template. I can start from none, and basically if I hit none on here, it'll end up telling me that I can build it section by section, or we can go in. So there's only one section there, and I can add each one in individually. So for use of force, if we want to, we can go to use of force report, and that'll start. What that'll do is give me all those sections you already saw: the event, the employee, the subject involved, others involved, interaction. And here's where you could really go in, and on any of these here, we can go in and change, relabel a field. If instead of BWC link, it might be vehicle dash cam link. You can relabel fields, change the display label. The boxes that are on here as well that you're going to see that's check marked. If we were to click on one of those check marks, that is now, all right, that's removed from your report. That's removed. If we click at this one, it's removed from your report. You have the ability to remove those, relabel them, or you can even go over and make something required or make something that's not required, which would allow that report to move along on the process with something not being put in the box, should you find that acceptable for the report you created. And just if you can scroll down just a little bit to the add a custom field, the very right there, custom field's going to pop up. I'm going to get a few options here. I can create a custom short text field. I can create a yes, no field, or I can create a code table field. You have the option to add 20 different customized fields per report, but with the code table field, there is the option to add one, where you can select how many drop downs and what you want in that drop down selection to really make sure you're capturing the data that you need for that particular report. Unlimited custom reports that you can create. Like I said, you can use the template that's already created there. You can create your own for monthly line inspection reports or use of a sick day. The options are pretty much endless on what you want to be able to capture and rename it as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. So for the purposes of demonstrating PowerIA, we're going to go ahead and come over to the same thing. All three products are dashboard based. So keeping that consistency there for the user. So again, your view here, as Andy had explained on the PowerAction dashboard, is going to be driven by the role or permissions that you have. So for PowerIA, you can see here we have our open cases, what needs our attention, what cases we have in draft form, and what we've submitted. So this allows the user to actually use this as a case management, or if I was the IA lieutenant per se, I could keep an eye on the progress for all of our cases. So again, similar to that status of what is needed, I have the same thing here for my cases, that something needs completion, it maybe needs approval. We can have the due dates put in here. We know again that many of these investigation timelines are driven either by policy or additionally by your collective bargaining agreement or maybe even state statute. And so you can configure the case types to have those due dates. I can see here who my investigators are, the case priority, etc. So I can start a new case from a couple of different ways. I can select the case type, assign a priority, assign an investigator, and the date received. For our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and just show you from the dashboard so I can show you a case that's already being worked, so that just in the interest of time. So this case is one that I opened earlier by ingesting an incident from the use of force report. So if I wanted to add an additional related item, for instance, maybe we have this use of force that occurred. The chain of command found it to be questionable or out of policy, and so they opened an internal affairs investigation. And then maybe we also had received a complaint on that same use of force. I can come in here, I can search for that complaint. I can look for that complaint and I can easily add it to my IA investigation. Let's go ahead and search for the complaints that were brought in. Of course, let me do it. Sorry, let me not do that. But I could add as many related items. So if we had additional items, I can keep adding items here. So similarly to the action report, we will have the progression that comes across the top for the investigator to guide them in their investigation. So the subject information is automatically going to be pulled in also from that incident report. So again, having some efficiencies built into the system and utilizing that information that we already have captured in the action reporting. So I can have my subject details here, then I can come to others involved. So again, if we had other people involved, we can add them here. Again, adding additional related items. So if I wanted to add additional CAD information here, an additional action report or complaint, I can again add that here. Our activity section is where the investigator is going to track everything that they do on a case. So again, we know that in most states or most agencies, you're going to be required to notify and contact the employee that they are under investigation. We have a built-in template, which is a great feature within the software, and I can sit here and I can just simply click to notify the subject, and it's going to, I don't know if it pulled it up on, let me see. It's going to pull up with your agency logo. Sorry, I wanted to make sure you guys could see that. It's going to pre-populate from the template that we set up during our configurations. It's going to notify the officer that he's under internal affairs investigation. It'll populate the date that you do this. It'll pull in automatically the allegations that you have listed, and you can include any language that you need of all of that information that you're required by the agency to inform the employee. So a great built-in feature there that it's, again, configurable to your agency's needs, as well as making sure that it all stays here within the application. So I can come in here, I can say that, yes, I contacted the employee, put the investigator's name, list everything from the activity time to the duration. This can be helpful if you're in a situation where you actually want to track, let's say, how long your investigators are spending viewing body cam footage. You could actually have your investigators track that easily by just having them capture that here as an activity. I can add additional files. So if I had generated that letter and I wanted to save a copy of that letter of the employee notification here, I can simply add that here, and then I can come and I can mark that activity as complete. One of the other features I want to point out that this can be helpful for is we have pre-populated activity types for this case type. You do not have to do that. You could start from scratch just by adding additional activity. But where this can be helpful is if you have a situation where you maybe farm lower level IA cases out to field supervisors, you can pre-populate the activities that are required for them as a reminder of what they need to do for those IA investigations. Because oftentimes when you have cases go out to the field, maybe that sergeant hasn't done an IA case in a while. And so this will help prompt them and make sure that they're doing all of the required activities that are required by your policy. So again, I can finish those activities. And then again, knowing that this is not linear, I can skip back and forth between the sections for an IA case easily. So if I'm during my investigation, maybe there wasn't somebody involved at the beginning and now I need to go back and add somebody, I can always navigate between the different sections. There is an additional section for attachments and links. And I don't know if we even got the chance to talk about that on ARs, but both PowerAction as well as PowerIA have the ability to add attachments for that specific administrative report, or in this case, the internal affairs case. So I can actually upload attachments. I can simply link to our body-worn camera footage for the specific purposes of this internal affairs case. I can add documents such as a witness written statement, pictures that maybe occurred from the incident, etc. And there is no file limit here for internal affairs, so I can add that here. Then we have our allegations section. So here we can pull in what type of incident that the allegation is stemming from. We can select the allegation. Again, this is code table driven, just like the code tables on PowerAction are driven. And then we have our ability to pull in our highlights. So here I already have one policy highlight as an example. If I wanted to add an additional policy, here's where the integration occurs with PowerPolicy. So all of your policies that are in PowerPolicy will automatically be pulled in here, allowing your investigator to do keyword searches or look at a policy in particular, being able to do things like search keywords or phrases and having it return for them, allowing them to map directly, if I could spell, that would be helpful, allowing them to make sure that they're actually capturing any of the areas that are applicable to that specific allegation and for that case. It has the highlight tool that's similar to our tool in Power Standard. So those of you that work on accreditation, you'll see that similarity. I can come in, I can add additional highlights for each allegation. It'll populate it. It's actually giving me a message here letting me know that this policy revision was actually published after the incident date. Again, helping your investigators ensure that they're using the policies that are in practice at the time of the incident. So a lot of built-in features in our products to make sure that our investigators and our officers are using the correct policies to investigate their case. The summary section is going to be where we actually add our investigative summary, again, allowing your investigators to complete their entire investigation in one place. And then finally, the review section. I do want to point out just real quick on the summary section, if you wanted, I know people are used to just typing their investigative file in a Word document. You could, of course, you could do that still and cut and paste it in here, but the idea is that we don't want you to have to use a different application. So you can add your full investigative summary here with things like bolding, highlighted, bulleting, etc. Then for the review section, it's going to take you through all of those sections that we did for our IA case, again, allowing you to go back and edit sections, again, also giving you an error message if you didn't complete something, drawing the investigator's eye back to knowing that they have to complete that. And then again, having the established workflows that, again, you can find for agency-specific reviews of your cases. And so that's a quick overview of PowerIA. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan to present so that he can take us through PowerVitals.
Thank you, Jessica. Give us a second while we pull up the PowerVitals screen for you. And as we're pulling up the screen, we're going to start PowerVitals at a point where someone had submitted a action report. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So here we're on the dashboard of the PowerVitals section of our professional standard suite. I'm right now playing a supervisor role where I oversee 3 separate officers, Amal, Stephen, and Darji. When I get to the dashboard, I should either get there through getting into the dashboard here, or I can get an email letting me know that one of my officers had alerted. An alert can happen through the standard thresholds as we've seen through traditional early intervention, 2 uses of force over 6 months, or whatever the policy entails, or it can be a multi-indicator, which we'll go over in just a second. But basically, I'm getting a notification, whether that's a summary of my dashboard or that's a alert, and I'm coming here and I'm seeing what is going on within my agency that I oversee. So here, as we've talked about the pulse score, we get a glimpse into the pulse score tendencies from that officer. We get an understanding of what they've alerted on, passing their thresholds, and any other indicators that they've experienced over the last X period of time. We can change the period of time here. We can compare this pulse score to the agency, any peer groups, divisions, and then most importantly, we can sort. So if we want to understand who's had the most alerts, we want to understand who's had the most indicators, or understand who has the highest pulse increase over X period of time, we can sort these direct reports up here by those sorters. Now, once I receive the alert, I want to come in and tend to that alert. I want to check in with this officer and see if they need to make a plan in order for them to change their behaviors. Are things in policy? So I come in here and I click on their alert. I noticed they had 2 foot pursuits over 6 months and our threshold was exceeded. We also have 2 uses of force and 2 uses of body worn camera failure. And the thresholds here you can see are 1 occurrence and 2 occurrences. So if I wanted to understand a little bit more about what's going on with this officer, I can close this alert, go into their profile here, and then I can get a full picture of exactly what's going on with my direct report, Amal. We can see the priority indicators, what they've been experiencing the most. So here we can see BWC failure, foot pursuit, use of force. We can double click into the pulse score here of what's causing an increase in stress for this officer's life. Here at each point, we can see the indicator, so an officer involved shooting, and then it's plus 20 points. So here we can also see the indicator summary, so all of the indicators in which they've been a part of, and then we can also add life events for this officer. So if we heard that this officer was experiencing a divorce, or if they had a death in the family or a friend, we can add these manually to fill in the blanks of what's going on in this officer outside of their career. Things at home that maybe don't get noticed by supervisors. So here's a big picture of your officer. We think it's a really great summary of what's going on in that officer's life. Now we're going back to the dashboard and we want to create a plan for them, right? Let's just say that these BWC failures are out of policy. Here I'm going to create a check-in. In this check-in, we can have check-in response templates, which basically we've templatized how to handle this type of action. If they're not within policy, we want to come in here and say, okay, great. We can see we have templates here, start with neutral tone, and it's a whole plan of how to deal with a situation like this. The supervisor is equipped with the materials they need. Again, they can also assign a assist plan. An assist plan is basically a plan for this officer to go do steps in order for them to get either training, counseling, help, whatever they may need to get back on track according to that supervisor. We can make templates in here as well. So we can have a training step, we can have meet with a counselor. However the agency wants to set it up, they can set up these plans and these responses. And then eventually, once I set the date here, assign this to the officer, and then it is within the officer's hands to complete that assist plan check-in. You'll see that now the assist plan is in progress. It is now up to the officer to go ahead and take those steps and return it back to whoever is in the line of the chain command, whether that's a lieutenant, sergeant, or whoever needs to review to check off and say, yes, that officer has completed that training and those steps. So that is pretty much the loop. You'll also be able to create manual check-ins. So if you notice that an officer has a high pulse score increase over a period of time and you just want to check in and see how they're doing, that's a great opportunity to record that check-in in our database and log that and say, yes, I did have a check-in with that officer. We talked about what's going on in their life, and it's here recorded for me to show I had that conversation. Again, it's a supervisor forward way to approach mental health and your officer's well-being. Now, we talked about the data that's coming in to Vitals. Here are all the different ways that you can ingest data. We can go in and manage and say and map the allegation types that are coming in. So we can say that this allegation type is a high allegation, a low allegation, a moderate allegation, because not all allegations are created equally. These allegations start to come in and populate what an officer has been accused of or been with an internal affair case. We also have a action report mapping, so we can say that foot pursuit goes to a foot pursuit indicator. It's pretty standard here. You're just telling our system where these action reports go into our system. And then as well, we can create, like I said on the profile, we can create life events. So if we want to go in and also create positive indicators for these officers, we can as well. So commendations and awards, or also more of those things that are tough to deal with for an officer, like death of family or a friend. Really, the data here is limitless, and it is up to the agency of how much they want to provide. Here you don't see displayed is the CAD and CAD notes. That's coming up on our roadmap. fairly shortly here and will be available to all of the Vitals subscribers. I want to hand it back to Jessica. Let me go ahead and...
Yeah. Thank you, John, and Andy both for your help in going over the products that make up our PSS, our professional standards suite. So really, I think that there's a lot that sets our software apart and how our software is different. To me, some of the main points is having all of it be under the one umbrella of something that so many of our customers, right? All of our customers are already utilizing one of our products, have that together in one spot. It's highly configurable. We know that agencies have the need to be able to utilize this software in a way that makes sense for them and their policies and the way they conduct business. So we can configure, pretty much every aspect of the product, from having those weighted indicators like John was just talking about, to creating the forms or the form types and the workflows that your agency needs, and even to be able to utilize the software outside of maybe the initial intention of just having administrative reviews. So to be able to do things like track things that matter to your community. Like maybe you want to create a form type or report type to do how many Narcan deployments have you used in your agency. And that's something that's important to be able to communicate back both internally to your organization as well as your community. And so utilizing the software, again, to configure it to the needs of your agency. Another big thing is, of course, the security. All of our PSS products are secured by the AWS GovCloud and built on the trusted framework that PowerDMS by NEOGOV has always utilized, especially knowing that we have confidential information. The security is paramount. Making sure that we have great audit logs. That's something we didn't touch on today, but there is robust audit logs for the action reporting, for the internal affairs cases, for access to the system. You can look at what the new values were, what's been changed by a user, what they've done within the system. So the security of the system is also paramount. And then finally, the analytics piece. And this is probably my favorite piece of all of it, because we live in a time now that we're asked to do so much more to review our officers' actions. We're asked to do so much more to investigate our employees and share that information with the community. And so having an analytics tool that gathers all of this information, both from your action reporting, your use of force, your vehicle pursuits, your complaints, all of your cases, what are you doing for early intervention? How are you supporting your officers? And having the ability to pull together all of that data into one place and help that drive decision-making around training and policy and supervision within your organization really is going to help catapult your agency to be more professional and help you have more meaningful conversations, both internally with your employees, as well as externally with your community. And that's probably, like I said, my favorite part, that we know that we're empowering people to do a better job, both for their employees as well as their communities that they serve. And again, just utilizing these products together to help set you apart is really what I think sets our software apart from what we've had available in the past. And so with that, we are actually a little bit ahead of schedule, I believe, which gives us great time to be able to move to Q&A. So I know Alicia's been working on the back end. If our attendees did have questions on the back end, we'll take some time now to go through those questions. So Alicia, thanks.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I've been answering some of the questions in chat, but some I wanted to save because we've been getting these questions pretty commonly. So the first one is, if we currently have a case management system, would your system be able to bring in that data to track history, so legacy cases?
Yes, absolutely. So we know, again, especially just from the analytics, as well as the requirements to have that information available, we absolutely do support the ability to bring in legacy cases for your internal affairs. So that's done just via a CSV file. You can actually also have a full PDF of the whole case imported, and a pretty easy mechanism once we grab the fields that the CSV file can collect. And then you can also use that in addition to those PDFs for each of the cases and import it into the system, and you will have that available to you within PowerIA.
Perfect. And then I have a question about citizen complaints. Is there an ability for citizens to submit a complaint report, or is this only for employees of the department? Got that one a couple of times.
Yes, so absolutely, it comes with a public-facing link that would also include your logo. So upon implementation, that link can become active. You can utilize it on your web page and bring in and have that public-facing, not just compliment or not just complaint, but also compliment, so that you can provide that to your community as a way to interact with your agency. So yes, we do have that ability to allow for public complaints to be made. And again, you can have that be anonymous or their name, again, depending on the requirements of your state or agency's guidelines.
Awesome. Andy, I have one for you for action. This is a question we've gotten before. If there are multiple officers on an incident, how can they see that tied together in one event versus reporting on individual officers? And what does that look like for submissions?
It's going to kind of depend on the policy, because you have a couple different options that you can do. When we showed that the others involved, you can put witness officer. You can add those additional officers if it's 1, 2, 3, however many officers were on scene. And also, if I was on use of force with Jessica, but I used force and she didn't, I could add her as a witness officer. But if she has additional information, she could go into what is the supplemental report. It's a very condensed report, where since she didn't use force or reportable force, she would just put in the CAD number or the event number that links those reports together, where she might have received seen some different, had a different view, where she saw the suspect had the gun hidden down by the leg, or some other information that she wants to add, and also link in her body cam. So that can be done by doing a supplemental for multiple officers, or they can be added on the witness, or both. If we both use force, my recommendation would be we both did our own use of force report, but those are going to be linked again through that event number. And that was the one key thing that we wanted to focus in on the analytics, because we all know at the end of the year, we got to report on use of forces and how many times we use force and its incidents. And it can get kind of confusing, because you might have 17 different incidents, but 27 uses of force with 16 officers. So we wanted to make sure you had the ability to really look at those and say, who did what are we doing, why are we doing it, and for the any type of action report.
Perfect. Let me find, there's another common one, or another one about analytics. So when they're building out custom forms and custom fields, will they be able to report on that custom information in analytics?
When they build a custom report, they're going to choose the analytics report type that they want to capture that information on. They do have the ability to include those custom fields into the analytics. We are working on having the labeling conventions brought over to be consistent with that, but they do have the ability to attach an analytics report type to that custom report, ensuring that they have the ability to have good analytics associated with that custom report.
Great. I have a question for John. Does the pulse score still work when you only have one data source?
Yeah, so the pulse score works when you have any type of data source. It's obviously more comprehensive the more data sources you have integrated with Vitals, but if you just have one data source, it still works. So the more data sources, the more comprehensive, the better picture you're going to get of that officer's life, but it still works with one.
Okay, great. Let's see, I think we're getting some new ones. Hold on just a second here. Can you link multiple agencies, such as a police standards? Can another agency link their PowerDMS report and send it to the police standards in PowerDMS?
I think if I understand the question correctly, the answer would be no. So if you had, let's say, the need to report it to your post, your use of forces to the post, unless you set it up, we do have the concept of a tenant agency. So if the post was the owner, if you will, of the database or of the PowerDMS site, then there would be that ability for the agencies to then directly submit those reports under that tenant admin concept. But for the most part, within an agency, if they're utilizing it, they would need to download that report and then send it to them, unless there are unique circumstances in which people may want to give somebody outside of their department access to their PowerDMS site. So let's say that there's maybe an inspector general or something of that nature with the AG's office that they want to be able to share that information with directly, then they would have the ability to do that within their own site.
Great. We did get some questions about future integrations, and I'll say we are very excited that we announced this just 1 month ago, but we already have big plans to build things. So as those become available and as we're ready to announce those, you all will be the first to hear about it. We're excited about building some of those integrations that you were talking about. For now, I want to highlight when we're talking about what sets us apart and what makes us different, you all are going to get a takeaway that shows a checkbox of everything that we have versus the top software that's on the market today. Kind of a compare and contrast. So you can compare maybe the solution that you have right now or what you're doing right now with the features that are available in the professional standards suite. So you'll get that along with this recording and the slides that we've shown you today. And if you have any other questions or if you have a follow-up question to a question you asked, please feel free to reach out at contact@PowerDMS. And we will be happy to answer that question for you. And thank you so much, Jessica, Andy, and John for showing us these products.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.